Okay, I honestly don't know where to begin with this podcast. This is my third attempt at trying to record this intro. I have to be honest, folks, I'm really frustrated with this topic that I'm bringing up today, which is Donald Trump a racist? Now, this is a claim that many on both the left and the right, yes, including the right, who oppose Donald Trump are trying to make. They are trying to claim that Donald Trump is a racist. Now, I understand some of the logic from conservatives that Donald Trump isn't a Reagan conservative. I can understand that some people don't think that he speaks all that politely. I understand the complaint that some people think he's rude. But to say that Donald Trump is a racist, that's a far left talking point that really bugs the hell out of me. And it bugs the hell out of me that a lot of conservatives are starting to use this logic too. I really honestly don't think it's true, to be honest. I really don't. So I'll be analyzing why or why not Trump is a racist, and yeah, I don't think he's a racist, and I will explain what the Trump phenomenon is all about with the help of some audio clips. You're listening to the Whitfield analysis exclusively here on Tapewrite.com. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Alright, so first off, I want to take an opportunity to just thank the good folks at Tapewrite, and I want to thank Borja for allowing me to be on this platform once again and spread my opinion. And Tapewrite, I believe, is the future of podcasting, and I think the company is going to do great and amazing and wonderful things. The reason I say that right now is because I'm about to criticize one of my fellow Tapewrite users in a not so nice way, to be honest. I understand that Slate.com putting one of their podcasts up on Tapewrite. I know that was a big deal for you. Guys over at Tapewrite. I know that was pretty big for you, but I think the folks over at Slate.com, I think they're horribly misguided when it comes to Trump. And for those of you folks who don't know what I'm talking about, Slate.com just released a podcast called Trumpcast, which I don't know if it's exclusive to Tapewrite.com, but they've released it on Tapewrite.com, which is one of the audio publishing platforms that I use. It's actually the primary audio platform I like to use now. That's Tapewrite.com. Anyway, the folks over at Slate, they started to produce this Trumpcast, which they're claiming that they're trying to explore and understand Donald Trump's campaign. To me, it seems like a Trump hit piece, more or less, from what I've been able to gather. Slate.com is very much to the left, for those of you who don't know, and I am very much on the conservative side of things. Now, I do want to give a disclose. I do want to give full disclosure for those of you who have never heard me before, or even if you have heard of me before, might not know this. I am not a huge fan of Donald Trump. I support Donald Trump now. Initially, the guy who I was supporting in the 2016 presidential election was Senator Marco Rubio. And now Senator Rubio is out of the race, and I'm not really a big Ted Cruz fan either. And I'll explain why I'm not a Cruz fan in another tape, maybe. But today I'm here to discuss Donald Trump. Borges asked me to actually do a tape on Donald Trump for a while now. I know the J is silent in Borja, but please forgive my American pronunciation. Anyway, Borja, there we go, has been asking me to produce a tape for a while on Donald Trump. And I haven't gotten around to it, but I figured this topic of whether or not Donald Trump is a racist is a good place to start. Now, I haven't supported everything that Donald Trump says, but I don't think he's a racist. I want to play a little bit of a clip for you from this Trumpcast to kind of set up the premise of the argument that Trump is a racist, or kind of how they insinuate that Trump is a racist. Because in order for me to make my point, you need to understand the counterpoint that I am up against. So anyway, here is a good segment of Trumpcast. Here is the premise that Trump is racist. Cut number 1, go.
Jamel Bouie, Slate's chief political correspondent. He wrote a fantastic article this week called How Trump Happened, which argues that the racist dimension to Trump's support is a reaction mainly to Barack Obama. Jamel, you're in Austin, Texas?
Yes, that's right. I am here officially for South by Southwest, but it's really just been an excuse for me to hang out with some college friends.
I'm envious. I think I hear birds tweeting in the background.
Yes.
Everybody is talking about your article in Slate today about Trump, racism, and Obama. And I just wanted to ask you about it. To start out, in 2008 and 2012, we had a black candidate, Barack Obama, on the ballot. And open racism and debate about racism was much less of a factor and feature of the campaign than this time. Why are we getting it now and not then?
I think the reason we're getting it now and not then is, and it sounds a little tautological, but because then we just didn't have any major political figure who was willing to openly court that kind of racism. And so even though I think in the 2008 McCain campaign and the 2012 Romney campaign, Republican candidates sort of touched on things that could be linked to racial resentment, no one was willing to outright attract or court or essentially stand with racists, to put it frankly. And that is not the case in this year's election. And I think that fact has brought a lot of stuff that's been bubbling underneath the surface and that social scientists have been picking up on for the last 7 years. I think it's brought it all to the surface.
Okay, so the premise from Slate is that because we had a black candidate in 2008 in Barack Obama, and because we had a black president in 2012, no one on the Republican side was willing to court racists in America because they were afraid of courting racists or whatever. The point there wasn't too clear. Also, though, and this is one thing that the American left loves to kind of stereotype about conservatives, I'm explaining all this because Tapewrite has a bunch of European listeners, so I'm trying to explain this. The American left seems to have this stereotype that Republicans are racist and that conservatives are racist in America, even though the American left founded the KKK back in the 1800s. Even though it was the hard left that was fighting against desegregation back in the 60s, but they won't tell you any of this. They won't tell you any of this. I could go into a whole history of the American left and the American right from my perspective, but I'm not going to for this podcast, or this tape, rather. But getting back to the main topic, the notion that Donald Trump and the Trump campaign is courting racists isn't true at all, as far as I can tell. Yeah, it is true that David Duke, the leader of the KKK, endorsed Donald Trump, but Trump rejected that endorsement. And the thing with endorsements is not everybody gets to choose endorsements. Like, I can say, this is kind of a non-political example. I can say that I love Steve Jobs and I love Macintosh, which I do. I love Apple products. And I can endorse Apple products. And I can endorse, using the Apple Watch. Now, Tim Cook might see me, and for whatever reason he might not like me. I don't know why he wouldn't like me, because I'm a likable guy. But even though he doesn't like me, I've endorsed his product, right? There's nothing he can do to change that. Maybe that's a bad example considering we're talking politics, but still, kind of the same principle matters. Just because David Duke endorsed Donald Trump doesn't mean that Donald Trump has to necessarily support this whole notion or support this quote-unquote racism. And by the way, there are a bunch of black people that like Donald Trump, too. In fact, today, I saw on the news, there was a homeless veteran. There was a homeless veteran, an African-American woman, too. She was homeless. She went to a Donald Trump rally at Trump Tower in New York. And Donald gave her a job right at the spot. I don't know if this actually happened today, but it happened recently. I think it may have happened last week, but it hit the news today. Trump's election is not a result of racism in the country. If anything, folks, it's a result of the opposite. People are sick and tired of talking about racism. And this is another topic I want to get into. Barack Obama promised to be the great unifier here in America, folks. He was supposed to be the guy who was supposed to transcend race. Right? We were promised that if we elected Obama, all of our racism problems would go away. And yet, for the past 3 to 4 years, just in his second term alone, we've seen instances with the Trayvon Martin case. We saw that case, the Williams case, where people were looting in Missouri. We saw the formation of Black Lives Matter. We saw racial rioting at a bunch of universities across the country this year. Or at the end of last year, excuse me. So, racism still continues, and in fact, I would argue that in some ways, the whole racial tension thing has gotten worse because Black Lives Matter exists. And because there seems to be this whole fuck the cops movement, which I can talk about that too in another tape, because that's not helping things. But Donald Trump, his campaign is not racially motivated. It's really not. It's motivated by the fact that people are sick of political correctness. And to elaborate on this, I'm going to play a clip from Gavin McInnes. Gavin McInnes, for those of you who are unfamiliar, he is a libertarian commentator from Canada. He's kind of the conservative. He's what we Americans would call conservative here in America, but he's from Canada. He lives here in New York now, but he's from Canada. And he explains that Donald Trump's campaign isn't from a result of racism. It's from the fact that it's a result of the fact that people are sick and tired of political correctness. So I'll play this clip for you from Gavin McInnes. This is Gavin McInnes on The Gavin McInnes Show, his podcast, talking about why Donald Trump is so popular. Cut number 1, go. Oh, I'm sorry, cut number 2, go.
Here's the deal, Trump haters, and they come in a wide variety of colors. There's the Trump haters on the right who say, oh, he's rude and he's not reliable. And then there's the Trump haters on the left who go, he's racist. Trump is popular, if we want to just focus on race, besides all the hubris and the money. The racial thing with Trump is we're fucking sick of race. We gave you a black president, and by you, I mean everyone whining about race, so mostly white people. We gave you a black president for 8 years and said, promise to shut up. Everything got way worse. Race became way bigger of an issue than it was before. We've got fucking college professors and college presidents having to quit because someone is mad about something that never even fucking happened. We've got Halloween costumes we're not allowed to wear. You came up with way more rules. The fucking word white supremacist, you only heard that when I was a kid in the 80s. It was Nazi skinheads. And the white supremacist would be some guy from Vanguard fucking media, Stormfront, whatever, who had a little kitty cat he was always stroking. It was way the fuck out there. Now, white supremacist is everything. I mean, fucking everyone. I get called a white supremacist every fucking day. Even though I think Asians are better. And Jews. And I fucking married a mongrel and made a bunch of mud babies. I'm the fucking racist. So the reaction to that is we tried apologizing. We tried placating. You just got more hungry for power, just like Islam, just like fucking ISIS. So we said, you know what? We're done. And when you see a presidential candidate who doesn't fall for your bullshit and doesn't cry and doesn't coddle, there weren't protesters. They're there to sabotage a talk. And if they don't get a red carpet on the way out and a pat on the head, then you go, you're inciting violence because you're racist. Why weren't you mad when Obama was inciting violence? Let's pull up that Stéphane Molyneux video. These people are not protesters. They went to sabotage an event. People have been waiting months to go. Think of it as a rock concert. You go to sabotage a rock concert, you get shoved on the way out, you get punched on the way out. That's what happens. Go sabotage an Iron Maiden concert, okay? I don't care if you're fucking dressed like an Iron Maiden fan. You're going to get punched in the head on the way out. It has nothing to do with race. And that is why people are supporting Trump. Not because they're racist, but because they're fucking sick of race. Shut up! God! Do you know how little people like Trump care about race? They are the least racist group there is because they don't come across a lot of black people. The black people they come across are super nice. They don't live in the ghetto. To Donald Trump, to upper class New Yorkers who are in real estate, black to them is like Motown and that nice guy who works at the Armory. Like, it doesn't come up. Blacks are Armenians to them. They're nice people that are over there. And that group, like middle-class baby boomers, if anything, they idolize blacks, but they don't come across them. They don't live in inner cities. So they don't have time to be racist.
Yeah, I apologize. I probably should have warned you guys about the language in that clip. But if you read the description of this tape, you've probably already seen that there's some explicit content in this tape, so it's all good, hopefully. Yeah, here's the deal. And I don't want to repeat everything that Gavin just said, but he's practically right. All of this racial tension in Black Lives Matter, all of these riots in Ferguson over Mike Brown, that was the guy's name that was escaping me earlier. All of this thing with Trayvon Martin. Here's the deal. The vast majority of Americans that I know of, the civil rights movement back in the 60s, they won. Alright? The civil rights movement fucking won. And I'm glad they won. I'm glad I have black students on my college campus. I'm glad that there are black artists and black musicians. I'm a huge jazz fan. I'm a huge fan of blues. None of that crap would exist without black people. So Trump's campaign is not racially motivated. If anything, Black Lives Matter is racially motivated. This whole thing with race, it only started happening within the last 3 or 4 years, as far as I can tell, with, incidents like Trayvon Martin and Mike Brown, which, by the way, those were both instances where it was proven, in the case of Trayvon Martin, it was proven in a court of law that George Zimmerman was within his right to defend himself against Trayvon Martin, who was literally beating him and pounding his head into the pavement. So it was an act of self-defense, and Zimmerman had the right to defend himself. That's not what the media would like you to believe, the mainstream media, but that's what happened with the Trayvon Martin case. In the case of Mike Brown, what happened there was he attacked a cop and tried to get the cop. He tried to get the cop's gun, and instead of getting the gun like he wanted to, he got the gun in his face, and the cop defended himself and pulled the trigger. FYI, if you're ever near a cop, don't piss him off. Just don't. That's how you avoid a confrontation. Just be polite, just be courteous, and move on with your day. Also, I believe Mike Brown also assaulted a store clerk before he attempted to assault the cop. I believe that's actually why the cop was called in the first place. But this racial shit has been going on for the past 2 to 3 years, roughly during Obama's term, and instead of being a unifier, instead of saying, you guys, we need to, not everything is race-based, he's just inflaming these people, saying, well, I understand why people are mad. We haven't worked through all of our racial issues as a society. What are you talking about? The civil rights movement was passed in the 60s. As a society, we're fine in terms of race. Everything has been desegregated. Individual racism on a case-by-case basis is something that isn't yet fixed, but that's because it's an individual problem. And I've got news for you. As long as the human race exists, there will always be prejudice. As long as the human race exists, there will probably always be war. There will always be prejudice. And it sucks, I know. But it's been that way for millions and millions of years of civilization. And it's not going to stop anytime soon. I think the society we have now in 21st century Western civilization is pretty good. It's pretty good. Minus the terror attacks that have happened in Brussels. But that's the Middle East. That's a whole different enchilada. Borja, if you want me to do a tape on radical Islamic terrorism, I'd be happy to, because then we'll be getting into a whole nother enchilada. But anyway, so Trump's campaign isn't motivated by racism at all, folks. It's motivated by people who are sick of talking about race and political correctness and who just want to get on with their lives. And that is probably the simplest explanation I can get in under 30 minutes. So I want to thank you for listening to this tape. You've been listening to the Whitfield Analysis on Tapewrite. I'm Sam Whitfield. You can find all my contact information in the card below. And until next time, I'm Sam Whitfield for all of that next-gen conservative media. Have a good night or a good day whenever you're listening to this. God bless and God save this great nation.